The time my crazy old neighbor called CPS on my family, part 2/4. Posted by you/NotYourBusiness789. So, where were we? Right. We just had our second CPS visit in less than a month, thanks to Ms. Kravitz and her crusade to protect the children from a stable, loving, mildly boring suburban household. By this point, my parents were done playing nice. We weren't going full scorched earth just yet, but the gloves were off. Everything was documented. Every incident, every weird encounter, every time she glared at us from her porch like the Eye of Sauron, we had it on video or in a notebook. And we needed it. Because visit number 3 was coming. It was early December, right after a snowstorm. The kids were outside in the yard, bundled up like tiny marshmallow people, making snow angels and trying to build a snowman that looked more like a snow blob with personality disorder. My mom and I were in the kitchen baking cookies. Like, Hallmark movie levels of domestic peace. Then, a knock on the door. I checked the Ring camera. CPS again. This time, they were responding to a report that said our children were locked outside in freezing temperatures without supervision. That we had neglected to provide proper winter clothing. Oh, and that there was yelling and emotional abuse heard from the home. Yeah. My siblings were literally wearing brand new North Face jackets, waterproof snow boots, gloves, hats, scarves, the whole ensemble. My mom had just bought it all during a Black Friday sale. She even had the receipts. The CPS worker this time was less friendly. Professional, but clearly wary. My parents were cooperative, as usual, but I could see the shift in my mom. Something had snapped. She was polite, but icy. The kind of polite that says, "I'm smiling so I don't scream." She asked the worker point blank, "How many reports does it take before someone investigates the person filing them?" The worker looked uncomfortable. She said the reports were anonymous, and that unfortunately, unless the reports were proven to be malicious or clearly false, they had to respond. She also quietly admitted that multiple calls in a short period can raise red flags, but CPS has to walk a very careful line. Too cautious, and they miss real abuse. Too reactive, and people like us get steamrolled. But she did say something that changed everything. "We're not allowed to tell you who filed the reports, but we can tell you that every report came from the same phone number." Boom. That was all we needed. My dad called a lawyer the next day. Not to sue Ms. Kravitz, yet, but to start protecting ourselves legally. The lawyer helped us draft a cease and desist letter that, while not naming her directly, clearly stated that any further false reports, harassment, or trespassing would be pursued legally. We also installed more security cameras, visible ones. One pointed directly at the street. One aimed at our front porch. Another covering the backyard. It felt like overkill, but it wasn't. Because that night, Ms. Kravitz made her boldest move yet. Around 2:30 in the morning, our motion sensor light in the backyard went on. I was up late, thanks, insomnia, and I checked the live feed on my phone out of habit. And there she was. Ms. Kravitz. In our backyard. In a bathrobe. Holding what looked like a flashlight and a notebook. I watched in absolute disbelief as she walked up to our back window, peered in, and started writing something down. Probably taking notes on what brand of milk we buy or how many fruit snacks were on the counter. I shook my dad awake like, "You gotta see this. She's literally outside." By the time we got downstairs, she was gone. But we had it all on camera. Crystal clear. Ms. Kravitz casing our house like a wannabe neighborhood spy. We called the police. This time, they took it seriously. The officer came by, reviewed the footage, and nodded slowly like, "Yup, that's not normal behavior." We told him about the repeated CPS reports and the letter our lawyer had drafted. He agreed it sounded like harassment and trespassing, but he couldn't arrest her that night unless we wanted to press charges. We didn't. Yet. But he did go over to her house and have a little chat. According to the officer, who came back to update us, she claimed she'd heard suspicious activity and was checking on the children's well-being. At 2:30 a.m. In our yard. Apparently she said, and I quote, "Well, someone has to care about them." The officer warned her that if she stepped foot on our property again, she'd be charged with trespassing. Her response. Good. Let them take me to court. Maybe then someone will listen to me. Okay, crazy lady. At this point, the neighborhood was starting to take notice. Other neighbors had begun talking. Turns out, we weren't the first family she'd targeted. She'd made complaints about suspicious gardening at another house, and once called animal control because she thought someone's labradoodle looked too thin. We weren't dealing with a one-off nut job. We were dealing with a career-level busybody with a savior complex and no filter. And she still wasn't done. Because not even a week later, she made one more CPS call. The worst one yet.